Hello and welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Millie and I do like to feature a lot of indie makeup on my channel, but I also do like to talk about some more mainstream brands and products. And today we're going to be talking about the Huda Beauty Naughty palette. Now, I know if you follow me on Instagram, I talked a lot of crap about this palette and I made fun of it and all kinds of stuff. But I decided to grab the palette during the Sephora sale. It was 20% off. And also, I really love the Huda New Nudes palette. And that one I actually find it is a little bit too light. There's only like one deepening up shade. So I really like the fact that there's so many deeper shades in here to deepen out the outer corner with. And Huda Beauty's shimmers are always absolutely stunning from palette to palette. There was only one palette I didn't like the shimmers in, and that was like that neon orange mini 9-pan palette. But otherwise, I have a bunch of the full-size palettes like this, and they're really great quality. So in case you haven't seen the palette I'm talking about, this is the New Nude palette. This is what it looks like on the inside. So as you can see, there's two glitters in here, which I will probably never use, and I still haven't used it. But I have given this palette quite some love. I reach for this palette whenever I would go to a wedding or like a family holiday party or something like that. But also just sometimes I would like to switch it up back when I actually used to go to work and do a different eye look every day in the morning. This one also has like a totally different type of concept here in the corner. This is called Concealed, and it's like a concealer, and you can use it to cut the crease and you can use it to prime. I've actually used it quite a bit and I do like it. You can see there's a dent in it. The shimmers in here are spectacular. The mattes are great, but like I mentioned, the only real like deepening up shade is up here, and it's a Love Bite. The others are like, these are like great crease shades, but they're not quite deep enough for me, for my preference and how I like to do eyeshadow. So I did end up getting excited about the Naughty palette, but also honestly, the slippery shade just absolutely intrigued me and I really wanted to see it in person. So this is what it looks like. I've touched it quite a bit. I will do like a macro shot to show you a close-up of it. So quick trigger warning, I would skip over maybe the next like 10 seconds. So in today's video, I'll be doing 3 looks with this palette. This is the 3rd look that I am wearing right now, and I will also be reviewing it at the end of the video. But let's quickly just talk about some of the textures. We have some beautiful mattes. We have some super intense like metallic shades. They're a little bit on the flaky side. And then we have these 4 marble shades, which I will talk a little bit more about at the end of the video and my thoughts on those. I like the assortment of the shimmers and mattes in this palette, and also this really intrigued me. So Huda said that you could use this all over the lid, kind of as a glossy eye, which is nice in theory, but when you have oily hooded lids, 1, you don't really need any more oiliness, and 2, the longevity is definitely going to be compromised, especially when there's something sticky, and this is a little bit sticky. It's not like too intensely sticky, but you'll definitely feel it if you have hooded eyes. If you have wide set eyes, I actually wonder, I think it would last a little bit better on the lid, but this will definitely move eyeshadow around. I found it when I did layer it over a shimmer, it kind of took the shimmer away. It was just like a very basic gloss over. It wasn't like super shiny and glossy, so that might be fun for like editorial photos. And I've definitely dabbled in a lot of eye gloss, probably at least like 3 or 4 years ago when I used to do much more editorial looks for my Instagram, but nowadays I haven't reached for it. So it is fun to do for pictures, but it's obviously not very practical. So you can put it on your lid and then layer a shimmer over it, which is another way that Huda showed it in her video. And then you can put it on the cheeks, which is how I'm wearing it right now. And it's very subtle. So overall, it's not as useless of a shade as I thought it was going to be, if that makes any sense. But without further ado, let's get into the 3 looks, and then I will give you my thoughts at the end of the video. So let's go on to look number 1. I'm using a BH primer. I'm just gonna tap it all over. I'm gonna go in the crease with Rough first. Just start blending it out. You can see this is blending out so easily. I feel like I don't have to do much blending at all. So I'm gonna deepen out the outer corner here with Spicy, and I'm kind of tapping it on an angle. And I'm trying to keep it within my hood so that I have room to blend, because the moment I put it up too high, I will be blending all the way up over there, which is what I don't want. So just tapping this on, and I whipped off my brush so that there's like no product on it, and I'm gonna blend that out now. And I'm kind of gonna shape the shadow into an almost triangle so it looks like a shadow blended wing. Just gonna pack on a little bit more. This is such a gorgeous, like, neutral deep shade, but it's not just like a regular old warm brown. I love it. It's a little bit more plum-like. Next, I'm going to put on the Fahrenheit Pixie Epoxy, and I'm pretty much going to put it almost all over the lid. We're going to do like a super dimensional shimmery look on the lid. And I'm just tapping it out, making sure I won't get any harsh edges. And I'm gonna pick up Passion onto my brush and just tap it on. It's such a cool shade when you mix it. It's this like iridescent bluey pinky shade. It's really stunning. So this already has a lot of dimension to it, but we're gonna take it up a notch a little bit. And so I'm gonna like kind of feather out the edge up here almost a little bit into my crease, just to make it look nice and blended. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just use my finger and I'm gonna go into Shameless, and I'm gonna put that kind of like right in the center of my lid, and I'm just tapping it on and rubbing it gently. So you can see that just added like another layer to this, so that we have that pink and then we have that blue. I'm gonna go in with Passion a little bit more. I feel like we kind of lost it. And I'm gonna go also back in with Spicy and just really make sure that outer edge is blended in. So I think you can create some really nice dimensional looks with these like metallic-y shades. So you could just leave it like this, or we could take it even further, and I'm gonna go in with Tantric, and I'm gonna put that just like on the intersection here. This shade tends to be a little chunky and definitely very glittery, so then we have kind of like quite a bit going on. And of course you could kind of change out the placement however you wanted, so the pink here and then browns here, whatever. And so that's where I'm gonna leave this look. So I'm gonna go on to the other eye for the next look. To finish off this look, I'm going in with Spicy, connecting the lower lash line. And I'm also going to pick up a little bit of Passion on the same brush and layer it over top. Add some dimension, and then going to use Tantric for the inner corner. You can see it's very like sparkly, but it definitely will need a glitter glue or something. But so that kind of goes nicely in with where I laid it down earlier on my lid. So this is the first finished look. The same with the other eye, just prime with the ABH primer and tapped it out with my finger. Make sure it's nice and blended and pressed into the lid. So I'm going in with Arouse and putting it right into the crease, just going in and blending. And this is going to be a halo eye. And so I'm gonna bring this up a little bit higher because we're gonna kind of have it go up pretty far up here so you can see it, because I have hooded eyes. And my lid just gets swallowed when I open my eye. Clean off my brush and just went in with some translucent powder and blending the edges further, kind of just making it all melt together. I'm gonna go in with Untamed, and I'm gonna be tapping it on the inner corner, kind of on my lid, and then on the outer lid, just like on the other eye. Just very strategically placing it without taking it too far up, and then I will start blending it up. So I left myself some room to be able to do that. I feel like it's not blending over here. I'm not sure why. And then just gonna blend this out over here a little bit. Don't want to bring it out too far. But sometimes your hand just slips, you know? So still feel like it's kind of patchy over here. I did not experience this the last time I used this shade, so I don't know if that's the primer, what's going on. So next, actually, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the shade Slippery, which is basically, I forget what Huda called it, the like mica balls suspended in a gel. I don't know how else to say it right now. But I'm gonna tap that on my lid. So obviously this is not gonna give you like longevity if you were just to do this, especially with hooded eyes. Your eyeshadow would end up creasing like crazy, but this is a good kind of tacky base to start off with. So I'm gonna go in with Irresistible Me, and I'm actually just gonna use my finger and I'm gonna tap on that on the kind of outer portion of, and then going in on the inner portion, try to really rub it and blend it out. And then in the center, I'm gonna go in with Tantric. So we're gonna create this basically dimensional halo eye almost, but not like a structured halo eye, more like a feathered halo eye, if that makes sense. And I do feel like this looks a little bit textured, and it's not just because I use Slippery. I have used these shades before this video on top of like a glitter primer, and it's just the nature of the shadows. They will just look a little textured because they're kind of almost flaky. So that's why I like to use my finger to really be able to just rub them, and also make sure you're not using too much because they will definitely make the texture even worse. And I'm gonna finish off this look with Untamed. Just blend it underneath the lower lash line. And then I'm gonna take Arouse and put it kind of in the center here. And then I'm gonna use Flamethrower for kind of the inner corner highlight. For the waterline, I'm going in with Best O from ColourPop. And so this is the second finished look. So now we're on to the third look, and I'm priming with the Beauty Bay Eye Base in the shade 2. I'm gonna let this dry because this one's like really tacky, and eyeshadows like to stick to it and not blend out. And of course one of my eyebrow hairs is popping up. There's always that one brow hair that doesn't want to stick down. There we go. For this look, I'm gonna dip into Juicy. I'm gonna just put it into my crease on the inner half of my eye, and I'm really just focusing on placing it right there and blending out the edges. I'm gonna dip into Hypnotic just to help blend that out a little bit. Definitely brought that up too far. And so then the next shade I'm gonna dip into is Hard, which is one of the shades that's kind of a marble, but it's actually like a matte marble. There's no sparkles in it compared to this one. It's like a matte and a sparkle. And so I'm gonna just use this shade. This shade is actually like a creamy matte formula. It very much reminds me of the Natasha Denona kind of cream to powder formula. I'm just gonna pick up a little bit on the brush, and I'm gonna be trying to add a little bit more definition right in the crease here with that. Once the shade gets mixed, it's pretty deep, as you can see. It's really deepening that up over there. And I'm gonna take a little pencil brush and I'm gonna go in and draw a wing with this. I have like a full tutorial on how I do these kinds of wings on my channel in case you're interested, so I'm not gonna go too much into depth, but basically just map it out. But I love using this brush for it. Turn the brightness down a little bit. The sun keeps hiding and unhiding. Probably should have brought this up a little higher, but that's okay. We can clean it up easily so you can see how much deeper this shade looks versus the marble in the pan. And I can build up even more, but it just blends so nicely. It's a really nice shade. And I'm gonna take some of that Beauty Bay primer and I'm gonna kind of sharpen this edge up a little bit. And I'm also going to kind of cut it over here and create, kind of mimic the liner that I drew. And this, I don't really want it to be like too sharp, just adding some definition there. And I'm also going to use it to clean up this wing. Add in a little more to my brush. And over here, we've got a really nice sharp wing now. And then I'm gonna just tap this. Probably gonna be pretty tacky. I'm gonna go back in with a smaller brush and just kind of make sure it's smooth over here on the outer part of the blended section that I just cleaned up. So now I'm going in with Desire, and that doesn't really want to apply with this brush. I know some of these shimmers are just better applied with a finger, but I really need that sharp edge. So I'm gonna actually go in with the silicone applicator, which is also from Huda Beauty. It's like, it was a release from a few years ago. All right, the sun came in, I'm sorry. This is what happens when you film with natural light. I really just prefer natural lighting, but sometimes it makes things very difficult. So I'm gonna take a little bit of Hypnotic onto this brush, and I'm just gonna feather out this edge of the shimmer. And I have sparkles literally everywhere, and I kind of want to add a little bit of dimension in here, so I'm gonna swirl my finger in Flower Power and just put it right in the center. And so I'm gonna finish off the other eye and we'll get right into the review. So I forgot to press record. So what I did was I finished off my lower lash line with the shade Hard, and I put on the Slippery shade as a face highlight, so you can see my cheek looks nice and glowy and wet, and it kind of just melted into my skin. I really like that look. I do wish my shade had a little bit more of the pearls in it, so it would be even more like pearlescent and just a little bit more shimmery. But I do think this is how I'm going to use this shade for sure. And I'll also probably use it underneath the shimmers like I did in the second look. I think that worked pretty well. So this is the third and final look with the new Huda Beauty Naughty palette. So I did the 3 looks that you saw in the video. I also did 3 different looks off camera, so I feel like I have a pretty good feel for the palette and the shimmers and the textures for sure. And the Slippery shade, definitely have just thoughts overall on this whole palette. Overall, I'm actually really happy with this palette. I do not regret this purchase at all. I am, however, glad that I got it for 20% off. I really don't think it's just worth full price, especially if you just are not like a cream kind of person and this shade will be useless to you. Now the mattes are very pigmented, they're blendable. I had a little bit of issues here and there, but I think it was the primer, because the other times I've used this palette off camera, I had no issues whatsoever. So now let me talk about the marbled shades. So Passion is absolutely stunning. I love the way that it mixes them together actually, and I think once you swirl once in there, you pretty much get the same type of shade every time you try to put it on, so you don't get like 2 different colors. And then the yellow shade is kind of like a matte with a shimmer mixed in, so you kind of get like almost a, it's a sparkly effect, but it's not like super metallic. And then the last shade up here is Hard, which is basically just 2 creamy like matte swirls together, and it reminds me very much of the cream to powder formula from Natasha Denona, and I would absolutely love to see this formula more in Huda palette, but just in general from other brands. I just really enjoyed this different take on a matte where it's more creamy, and because it is so creamy, it's actually pretty pigmented, so it's almost like a more like a deepening up shade. You could definitely use it in the crease as well. So I like that because that's another shade I can use to deepen out the crease or the outer edge or what have you. And then lastly, let's talk about these shimmers. We have Desire, Tantric, Irresistible, Shameless, and Please Me, which are like super high shine metallics. These definitely apply best with a silicone applicator or your finger. These are absolutely the shiniest of the shinies. They're super gorgeous. However, they do accentuate skin texture, especially if you put too much on. So I would recommend using a very light hand with these. So because of that, I'm not sure if I would recommend this palette for anyone with mature lids. And then lastly, onto the last shade, which is Slippery down here, which is the kind of pearls suspended in a gel or whatever it is. When I first saw it, when I first opened this palette, I actually thought, like, yes, it looks like a petri dish. Yes, it looks like 2020 in an eyeshadow, but it's actually really cool and it's kind of a different kind of experience. Does it feel a little gimmicky? Yes. Are you going to be able to use it on the lid and just go about your day and have a really cool, like, gloss, you know, like high fashion model look? Probably not. It's not going to last. It's gonna move anything you have underneath it around. So I plan on using this to put shimmers on top of it, and also on my cheeks. I really do like it on my cheek. It just gives a little lighter sheen. One thing that does annoy me is I've seen a bunch of videos and just a bunch of photos of different people getting these palettes, and I don't like the fact that everyone has different amounts of pearls. I feel like it's a little unfair for anyone who has less and anyone that has a lot. I personally wish I had more. I just wish I had a little bit more color, maybe a little bit more like blush-like. But otherwise, that's what I'm gonna use this shade for, those two ways. And I'm not mad about it. Honestly, I really like cream products. I love my cream highlighters, and this is basically a cream highlighter. So I didn't know where to put this in the video, but I ended up mixing the Slippery shade up to kind of make it all even and distribute the pearl pigment, and it was super fun. It was cool to see just the jelly on the edges when it lifted up as kind of like a big piece in the shape of the square pan. And the pearls were really easy to mix in. They didn't feel hard or anything. And I really like it now. When I swatched it, it's definitely got a little bit more of a tint now. And as you can see, the sparkles are really beautiful. So overall, I'm really glad I got this palette. I actually don't have that many neutral palettes anymore. And this is like, yes, it's a neutral palette, but you have like the kind of like deeper reddish tone, and then you have like the more plummy tone, but you do have a little bit of variance in tones in here. Planning on pairing it with the new nude palette, so I'm excited. I actually did a video a couple weeks ago where I talked about eyeshadow palettes that have already been released that I still want, but they're kind of old news, and I talked about the 3 Huda, the neutral 9-pan palettes, and I actually saw a video someone doing comparisons between all 3 of those and this palette, and basically those 3 palettes dupe out this palette. So I'm glad that I have like one palette with all the shades versus getting all 3 of those. Obviously, if you have the 3 other palettes, then you definitely don't need this one, but I'm glad. I think this is a great addition to my eyeshadow palette collection. So those are my thoughts on this palette. Are you surprised? I'm surprised. I'm surprised that I even bought it in the first place, but sometimes curiosity just gets the best of you, and I'm kind of glad it did. I'm really excited to use this palette in the future once we can actually go out and go do things and go out and go to parties and stuff. I think I will get some really great use out of this palette. The shimmers are just really stunning. And if you know me, you know I love my shimmers. So that's everything for this video. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new to my channel. I will put up some more of my videos up on the screen in case you're interested. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.